Hello, Candace.
Not you again.
Me again. Remember our last oil change?
Ugh.
Your boyfriend said he knew a guy who knew a guy. None of those guys knew what they were doing, including you, Todd.
Silence your oil change anxiety at Valvoline Instant Oil Change, where you can watch our experts change your oil right from your car.
Thanks for coming in.
And finish in about 15 minutes. Valvoline. Service you can see, experts you can trust.
I'm Mallory Hartley. That's Greg Powers, and it's This Week
in Cruton.
It's This Week in Recruiting, presented by our good friends at Chicken Express. Powers, we are going on another road trip this Thursday, and we'll preview that game here at the end of the episode. But I have one request before we go down to our
I have
location.
A request.
You have a request.
Is your request going to be that we stop at Chicken Express?
How did you know? It's like you can read my mind.
It's because we've been on 4 roadies already this year. For the DCX
and I think at least one person every single time has been like, how about Chicken Express?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty much a lock at this point that you know that, all right, the road sweet tea.
It's so good. And
the
Dr.
road
Pepper.
Sweet tea.
I'll tell you Dr. Pepper too.
Yeah, you get the Dr. Pepper. I like Dr. Pepper too, but the Chicken Express sweet tea to me just hits different.
It's
and
unmatched.
To put that in big text in the cup holder as we're driving, so much comfort.
It's just the perfect way to fuel up for a Texas high school football game. And I stand by that. I really do. So
I think all the teams that eat Chicken Express win.
I think
every game I've been to, I've never seen somebody not celebrating with the Chicken Express box after the game. So
I know. And every time we've had it, we've had great games to watch.
There you go.
The correlation, I think there's a correlation.
Winning and having fun equals Chicken Express. There you
I
go.
love it. Well, we love that Chicken Express sponsors our favorite segment this week in recruiting. Let's jump right in because we got a big week this week. We'll start with our prospect on the rise. Our prospect on the rise this week is Fort Bend Crawford 2027 wide receiver Alvin Mosley. The 6'2", 185-pound prospect is
Here we go.
newest DCTX 4-star and has put on a show, Powers, already this season, totaling 543 all-purpose yards and 9 touchdowns through just 3 games this season. Absolutely explosive. And he's picked up offers from Texas, Arizona State, Kansas, and more. A couple of those, like Arizona State and Kansas, came calling after his 4-touchdown performance last week against Hampshire Finette.
Yeah, he is a dog, and I think the thing that I really love about his tape is that he creates enough separation in the phone booth that he can, let's just say you throw it 6 inches behind him, he can catch it because he has the separation and still hit the end zone on a straight run. This guy can score from anywhere on the field, and he's had a pretty prolific Texas high school football career already, now approaching the 1,400-yard mark, scored 16 touchdowns through the course of, because they played some good playoff games last year. He's got some extra games under his belt, but he's going to be one of the more experienced receivers by the time he leaves Texas high school football as well, playing for a team that's truly on the rise in Fort Bend Crawford. Mosley is a guy, he reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hale. They do have some...
Longview, yeah.
Yeah, they do have some differences, but both around 6'2", 175, 180 pounds. Hale was a top 10 player in the state, and I think off of what I've seen so far, especially in the early going, Mosley's going to make his case to be amongst those types of players. I'll preface this, though. The class of 2027 in Texas is absolutely loaded. There's a lot of dudes in the class of 2027, so fighting over those top 10 spots, I think, is going to be very interesting to see how it shakes out. But Mosley's just one of those guys who checks all the boxes. He's got the size, he's got the speed, and he's got some athleticism too.
He's got a little bit of athleticism. One of the things that really stood out to me when I watched his tape yesterday was his vertical and his ability to go up and high point the ball. And that speaks to his dual sport athleticism. He's also a basketball player. He actually has a couple of offers to go play at the next level in basketball too. One of the only prospects I think in the state that has both football and basketball offers to go play.
Kavion Bryant and Alvin Mosley are the two that come.
Well. Yeah.
That come to the top of my head.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just love his athleticism and his ability to go up there and grab the ball and climb that ladder.
You can see that vertical from basketball in his tape.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like.
Stands out.
Staying on the Jalen Hale comparison thing here, Jalen did a really tremendous job of using his body. He had really long arms. And Mosley does it in a little bit of a different way because of his leaping ability, which makes him unique and special and just gives him another advantage in his game, because I think he's a pretty smooth route runner. And when you put those two things together, I think sky's the limit on his projection. I'll be interested to also see how some of the national recruiting sites attack his rating, because, as they're doing their projections, they're concentrating a lot on NFL draft status. So I think because of his multi-sport background, he has a chance to be very highly rated on some of the national recruiting sites as well.
The upside is big,
because the upside is so big.
Yeah. Well, and when you take a look at his offer list, like I already mentioned, Arizona State and Kansas came calling after last week's dominant performance that he had. But I think he was on the 40 acres a couple weeks ago when they played their game against UTEP. And I don't want to make any projections here, but I know that Texas is the type of program that likes the versatility in their type of receivers, right? And again, don't want to make projections or anything, but Texas could be in a good spot to land Alvin Mosley in the future.
Well, I think you have to think that Texas could be in a good spot to land any top-tier wide receiver in the state. They do a really good job at that position. They get the footballs to their playmakers a lot of the times. Steve Sarkisian's offense gets receivers open, but this isn't going to be a layup for anybody. When you're talking about one of the top recruits in the country, somebody that everybody's going to be coming after, it's going to be about who is going to make him the priority and what relationships are powered behind that. And I'm interested to see exactly where he fits in on these recruiting boards, because I think one of the things that Mosley has to his advantage and why his offer list should be at 40 versus 25, and it'll probably happen sooner than later, is that he's a guy that can project in the slot or he can project outside. So no matter what the wide receiver coach is looking for, they're going to be able to work and offer in to Mosley and try to convince him, like, hey, come here and do this in my offense. And because he provides that versatility, I think that he can pretty much fit in anywhere. I don't think any coaches are going to come up to me about Alvin Mosley and say, we don't have room for a slot.
Yeah, no, we'll make room if that's the case, and especially if you're projecting that he could potentially be a top 10 player in the class of 2027. Who wouldn't want to come
no doubt
for Alvin Mosley out of Fort Bend Crawford? He's our prospect on the rise this week. Let's move on to our commit of the week. Our commit of the week is DeSoto, 2027 defensive lineman, Adrian Redmond, 6'3", 305-pounder, committed to none other than Texas Tech this past week over offers from Texas, Texas A&M, Notre Dame, and more. And one of the things that should stand out to you about this commitment is that not only is Texas Tech killing it on the recruiting trail right now, but they're landing dudes that have in-state offers from powerhouse programs like Texas and Texas A&M. Yeah,
Texas Tech is a force. They're not only doing great in recruiting, they're doing great on the field. Big win over Utah this week. You're starting to see everything kind of come together in Lubbock. Their recruiting train is rolling, picking up wins on the field, and that's going to continue to feed the flames, so to speak, as more and more prospects are chattering about spending their futures in Lubbock. You hear it all the time right now, and I think it's starting to become a trend where you see some of the social media influencers shouting out Texas Tech, and their prospects are talking about Texas Tech, and it's just one of those things that's going to continue to keep picking up steam. But you gave me some homework last night, Mal.
I did.
We were
put on that tape.
We were tasked to go down the tape rabbit hole to find out what we could on Redmond. And I watched some DeSoto games last night, and the thing that jumps out to me and why Texas Tech fans should be really excited about this commitment is that Redmond is a gap plugging specialist. 6'1", 6'2", 300 pounds. If he makes a move and gets into he's not movable. He plays with tremendous balance. He's going to get better at playing with leverage as he gets in, as he continues to refine his technique, but his strength jumps out right away. And this is a prospect who I kind of knew about from the early stages at Lake Dallas. You know, I think whenever he burst on the scene in my initial prospect list, whenever he was a freshman, he was a tight end defensive end, right? So that talks about how athletic he was at that point. He's continued to grow. He's a monster now, easily. Like, you notice him right away.
Yeah.
Right away. And teams have to put 2 blockers on him to make sure that he
doesn't start wreaking havoc in the backfield.
So they have to. He commands a double team often, which takes away a blocker, frees up people behind him to make plays. And looking at this class at Texas Tech that has really started to come together on, especially the defensive front. Now that they have a commitment from Keadrian Redmond, they also have a commitment from one of the top players in the country.
LaDamian Guyton.
Yeah, LaDamian Guyton.
Out of Savannah, Georgia.
I think he's the number 1 rated edge rusher.
Some sites have him as that, yeah.
So you're talking about Jadeveon Clowney type of play. Like, Jadeveon Clowney was one of the number 1 edge rushers in the country, right? So that's the type of rating you're talking about for a commitment that Texas Tech has from out of state.
Right.
Now you sprinkle in a Redmond, and another guy to keep an eye on, I think, on October 4th, as he set his commitment timeline, is Cedar Hill's Jalen Brewster. You know, Joey McGuire used to coach at Cedar Hill.
That pipeline is very strong.
Yeah, so I got to think that Texas Tech has a good shot at anybody who's announcing from Cedar Hill, but especially somebody who has scheduled their commitment early. I think that's very indicative, because this defensive line class is coming together. If Brewster commits to Texas Tech, you're talking about an elite edge rusher, a guy who can get it done off the edge in Guyton. You're talking about a true gap plugger, a guy who is a tremendous run-stopping force in Redmond, who's going to make the linebackers look really good, and then a guy in Jalen Brewster, if they were to get him, who's so versatile up front. Brewster plays running back.
Yeah.
At times. That's how athletic he is. He's one of the top-rated recruits in the country in his own right. So Redmond was a huge gift for the future of this defense, because these are the guys who make the defensive coordinator's life easier.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's pretty safe to say that they're dominating on the other side of the trenches as well. I mean, obviously, you've got the number 1 offensive tackle in the state of Texas in Felix Ojo. You've got another top offensive tackle in Bryce Gilmore in the class of 2026. But you take a look at the class of 2027, and they've got Cooper Hackett, who is the number 1 offensive tackle in the state of Oklahoma for the class of 2027. So it feels like their trenches are coming together, and they're kind of a force, like you said at the beginning, right now.
Yeah, Ojo's a 5-star, I think, by everybody, which means when you're looking at these national sites, that means they think that he's going to be a first-round NFL draft pick, right? Well, I think that Bryce Gilmore has future NFL first-round draft pick potential as well, because he has such a very high ceiling. He's a guy who just gets better and better with each and every rep. He's always been pretty good. He's a monster. You got to sit down and interview him. Like, he's a big dude, and he was our commit of the week last week. So that's a 2-week run for Texas Tech here, as they got Bryce Gilmore last week and Redmond this week. So not only staying hot on the field, they're staying hot in recruiting, and it's something that we continue to talk about now 2 weeks in a row.
Let's round it out with our underclassman of the week, and boy, howdy, I'm excited for this one. It's Rockwall 2028 wide receiver Ryan Wiley. 5'11", 170-pound prospect absolutely broke out against North Crowley last week, scoring the final game-winning touchdown and finishing the night with 5 receptions for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he holds offers from North Texas, SMU, UTEP, Pitt, San Diego State, and Tulsa. And Powers, I bet you after last week, seeing him in person, that offer list is just going to continue to grow. Yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and bet money on it, because I've had some of these coaches already asking me about this guy. So I think there are a couple out there that could be close. We'll see. But yeah, this is a guy who is super explosive. And I watch a lot of Rockwall now. I watched all their games leading into last week's win over North Crowley. And of course, we were on hand to watch them come from behind to knock off or win or beat the defending 6A state champions. And the offense really started to click in the fourth quarter. And it was Wiley's emergence that helped that machine start going. He came into this game as the team's statistical leader in touchdown receptions. But he caught as many touchdown receptions in this game as he had in the other games combined. He's now got 4 touchdowns on the year. And one of the things that I started to see Rockwall quarterback Brent Rickert do is believe in him and trust in him. He has Jack Duckworth, right? Like, that's a great
Stanford commit, yeah.
Great go-to wide receiver for Rickert in the Rockwall offense. But Wiley started to develop to become that guy as well, which made their offense so much more diverse because they like to do a lot of different things within their offensive game plan, moving guys around. They have a really good tight end who knows the game, and then that allowed them to move UTEP commit Jackson Stoner over to play some more defense, but they have pieces on that offense.
Caden Castro there at running back, too, so it makes him kind of two-dimensional in that way.
Right, yeah, so everything started to click in that game, but it also started to click for Ryan Wiley. I felt like that. I think Carter Yates said it great on the broadcast. A star is born, right? And that's kind of how I felt about Ryan Wiley's game, because you could see him start to understand, I'm the guy.
Yep.
Right? I'm the guy. And no more was the... I don't know. It's just like he has this certain way of being able to manipulate his body or turn to make these catches. It's nuanced. It's not exactly hard to... It is. It is exactly hard to explain unless you see it with your own 2 eyes. And I saw a little bit of that in young Garrett Wilson. Yeah. Right? Young Garrett Wilson was able to make these hard catches at times look really easy. And Ryan Wiley did that on a couple of plays. You know, he caught the game-winning touchdown, but there were a couple of those plays where the ball was thrown a little bit behind him. He's able to keep full stride and turn back
and grab
the ball and make it look so easy. And then along the sidelines, which is one of the toughest things to do, right? One of the toughest things to do is to be able to understand your space, get your feet down, and especially if the ball is not in the place like exactly where it makes that easy, he's able to manipulate and contort himself to make these difficult catches look easy. And we only saw it in a small sample size, right? But 2 catches out of X catches, and you had to do that. That to me is a trend.
Right.
And I look to see that trend continue. Yeah. I look to see that trend continue on his tape this year. I think he's got a chance to pick up a lot of offers.
I think so too. But looking back at the game significance as a whole, I mean, North Crowley hasn't lost a regular season game since 2021. And to me, it felt like this could potentially be that turning point for Rockwall in their season. And I got to talk to Ryan Wiley actually after the game, and I asked him about that. I was like, what was kind of the mindset on the field after the game? And he goes, this does feel like kind of a turning point for us. This feels like, hey, scratch what happened in the first half of the season, right? We're a new team now. We have that identity, like you were saying, and it's 1-0 moving forward.
Well, the recruiting nerd in me wants you not to bury what I would think is elite. It's great you asked him about the game, but what college? What does recruiting
care about? No,
what's the recruiting tidbits? Was there somebody that stands out for him, or that we should keep an eye on here in this one early?
Well, like I said earlier, he's got an offer list of 8 programs, and so I asked him. I was like, which of those stand out, if one? And he looked at me and he said 2 words. And that was pony up. That's all he said.
Well, there you go. So, I mean, that's interesting to see, too, because that was one of his early offers, right? So they do make an impact.
They do. Well, and I asked him, I was like, have you been on the campus yet? And he said, yes, ma'am. And I quote, I have. I love it. The atmosphere is great. I know a bunch of the coaches, and it just feels like home. So I'd love to be there. So it seems like SMU is making an impact early on in Ryan Wiley's commitment.
Well, if you haven't offered yet and you want to try to compete, in this one. I love that, though. You know what I mean? Because the early offer means something to these kids.
Yes.
And he noticed that a P4 program took an early interest in his skill set. Yeah. Here's a chance for some of these other colleges who have him on the board to go ahead and pull the trigger to compete with that. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's time to compete. You want to win Ryan Wiley's commitment, you got to get in the game.
He's a bona fide stud, and he's our underclassman of the week, class of 2028. Still crazy to say.
Yeah.
2028. Well, Powers, I think that's going to do it for us today. But before we go, you want to let the people know where we're going to be this Thursday night?
It's a banger this week. Iowa Colony at Richmond Randall. A couple of top-tier prospects in this one. Of course, everybody's going to know about the most offered player in Texas, the man with 54 FBS offers and over 60 total offers, and that's Randall running back Landon Williams-Callis. And then also you're going to Must-see TV for me is Jaden Warren, the Houston wide receiver commit. I've been a big advocate in the class of 2026 that like 1 through 25, all of these guys have a case for the number 1 spot. And it's really wide open. We've named 2 5-stars so far in the class of 2026. There's still 3 spots remaining. And the reason why we've been so hesitant to name like added 5 stars is because it's literally so tight. It really is. So some of these guys I felt like we had to see, and Jaden Warren is one of them. So I'm excited to watch him ball.
And I know for sure that this is kind of a box office must-see game because these two teams met twice last season, and both of them were absolute box office games. So, and they returned the pieces, like you said. They returned the pieces to be good football teams again this year.
They're fun on offense, aggressive on defense. They all have guys. And, you know, Keyshawn Henderson is the highest-rated Houston commit. If it wasn't for Keyshawn Henderson, I think that Jaden Warren would be the highest-rated offensive commit of all time. For Houston. So, I mean, so this is a pretty good class for Houston. And Jaden Warren, like, if you're a Cougars fan, like, he's like a guy that you should definitely be talking. Everybody loves to talk about Keyshawn Henderson. Jaden Warren is a dude.
If you're just a Texas high school football fan, you need to tune in this Thursday for our DCTX Rising Game of the Week. And of course, you can catch that on TexanLive.com or for free on our YouTube channel, which you can find at youtube.com/@DaveCampbells. Well, I think that is going to do it for us. And we always appreciate Chicken Express for sponsoring our favorite segment, This Week in Recruiting. For our producer, Sam Moore and Greg Powers, I'm Mallory Hartley. We'll see you next Tuesday at noon.